Remember, some of this is in 4/4 time, right? 4th of July. So remember, when we play America in this method, it's also God Save Queen. Right in the middle, America will be God Save the Queen. Right in the middle. The Anglophile that I am. Here we go. Here we go. 4th of July. Here we go. Irish festival. Irish festival. Nice slow beginning. Here we go. Irish. What time is it now?
3:21. 3:21.
Comfortable? And we'll be starting in very shortly.
From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. We departed Mother England in the year 1607, just to find a way to China and the promised land of gold. But the winter brought us to our knees as we built the ship from local trees, and we'll finish her if we don't freeze, 'cause we've never been so cold. From the forest of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. 100 souls embarked that year from England to Virginia. Newport settled Jamestown, and Popham sailed to Maine. But the Popham food was running low, so half the men would choose to go and leave the rest to face the snow and Maine's winter rolling in. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build a good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. 100 souls embarked that year from England to Virginia. Newport settled Jamestown, and Popham sailed to Maine. But the Popham food was running low, so half the men would choose to go and leave the rest to face the snow and there's winter rolling in. From the forest of the Kennebec, we'll build a good Virginia. We'll build her from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her humble home, and once her humble sails us home, we'll launch the good Virginia. She'll sail us home again. In the autumn of 1608, we finished the Virginia, and we all sailed home to England on the first ship built in Maine. Then she crossed the great Atlantic Sea to bring supplies to Jamestown. And in just 12 years, the Pilgrims used our knowledge once again. From the forest of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her humble home, and once her humble sails us home, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her humble home, and once her humble sails us home, we'll launch the good Virginia. We'll launch the good Virginia. We'll launch the good Virginia. It shall sail us home again.
When King James wore the English crown, 2 ships sailed forth from Plymouth town. The gift of God and the Mary and John to Virginia made their way. George Popham was the leader then, and with him went 100 men to build a fort on the northern strand, and for the winter stay. Using tools of the proper sort, they built a house and sturdy fort, their brave adventure to support, and a colony to begin. Then Gilbert looked, or so it seemed, up every river, brook, and stream. The Northwest Passage was the dream, would all their fortunes win. And as they viewed the woods around, the oak and pine did there abound, the like of which had not been found in England for many a year. There was amongst those hardy wights one shipwright, Digby he was hight. He laid a keel by the water bright to build a pinnace there. As autumn's days began to wane, their 2 ships sailed back home again, leaving 45 brave men there by the ocean side. Scarce 1 month or 2 was passed before the winter's icy blast brought great hardship, cold and frost. 'Twas then George Popham died. The colonists were in great need when Raleigh Gilbert took the lead, strong of will and rash of deed, then whether 'twas right or wrong. With haughty mien he sent his men to fight the local Indians, for food and firewood ran out then, as winter lingered long. Yet don't mighty dig be labored on, the beams were hewed and flags were sawn, the pinnace frame was raised anon, a ship of 30 ton. The hull was fit, the seams were caulked, the mast was set, spars rigged aloft, the sails were bent when she was launched, Virginia was done. But they had barely rigged the clews when a ship came there and brought sad news. John Popham had died, John Gilbert too, but Raleigh was his heir. So Fort St. George was burned down for fear by France it might be found. To Compton Castle was Gilbert bound, to friends and family there. 2 ships the North Atlantic crossed, the Popham Colony was lost. The Plymouth Company bore the cost, but all was not in vain. Virginia also made the trip, the first of many wooden ships, crafted and launched down the slips along the coast of Maine.
Good afternoon. I know that this is way more fun than any of us imagined it could be. And I'm very grateful to all of you for coming. There are some of you who will find that you don't have the seat you dreamed of or the view you hoped for. I urge us to be kind, to be patient, and to remember we're all rowing in the same direction, which is to celebrate Virginia. And because I love social media, which did not exist in the 17th century, everyone wave and say hello and clap. So my name is Kirsty Trueluck. I am blessed to be the Executive Director of Maine's First Ship. I will start with thanks and then turn it over to the program. I will remind us, someone may ask you to step aside. Someone may ask you to move. They may need to get to a place that you are or ask you to clear a place that you're in. Thank you for your patience. And remember, we're all rowing in the same direction. I want to thank Schooner Fare and Castlebay for sharing their recordings that you heard. I want to thank our crew sponsors of Bath Farmers Market, Bath Printing, and Sharon Drake Realty, our second mate sponsors, Big Barn Coffee, Shipyard Brewery, H.M. Payson, and Director Robin Hood, and Custom Composite. I'd like to thank our first mate sponsors of Rennie's, a Maine adventure, and J.R. Maxwell's and Company, and finally, a big thank you and a round of applause to our captain sponsor, First Federal Savings, for making this day possible. We'll be here together for about an hour. Things will be happening all around us. There'll be boats moving over there in the water, but I hope you will enjoy. This will be a day to educate and to celebrate. So without further ado, I will turn you over to Jim Nelson.
Oh, wow, what a thrill. Oh, it is great to see everyone here. Thank you so much for turning out to help us celebrate. I'm Jim Nelson, and I have the honor to serve on Maine First Ship Board of Directors, and I'm also the lead rigger of Virginia. And now I get the profound pleasure of participating in this watershed moment, the launch of our fine ship that has been so long coming. So to that end, I would like to introduce the first speaker in today's program. When the Popham colonists landed on the coast of Maine in 1607, they did not, of course, find a deserted country, but rather a land with a thriving indigenous civilization and one that had already had contact with European explorers for nearly a century. Here to talk about that historic meeting of cultures is John Bear Mitchell. John is the Associate Director of the Wabanaki Center at the University of Maine, Orono, and he brings his Penobscot and Passamaquoddy culture to institutions of learning at every level through Wabanaki singing, drumming, storytelling, and history. And now we're pleased that he can bring it to us. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bear Mitchell.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you all for being here and willing to stand for this time. Stand for me, I think. No, or you're just standing because you don't have a chair. But thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Kachimon maswal taliwi skijinawado. Naga John Bear Mitchell nil taliwi is in English. Bernawupskig na nil jayo. The dilnabamic muin naga kakagos. Ijibalida hadam ali skijinawi. Ijibalida hadam gizi skijinwadwi. It's my guess that these rocks around here and these shorelines haven't heard the original language that they heard for thousands of years in quite a while. So I wanted to introduce myself to them again. And at the same time, you're here, and I wanted to introduce myself to you as well. Who are the Wabanaki? Who are the people that lived here? They were the tribes of this area we call today Maine. They're the Penobscot, the Passamaquoddy, the Micmac and the Maliseet, and the many tribes that left the regions because they were driven out and joined other tribes in other locations eventually. Tribes were no stranger to ocean travel. We had many water routes that took us over thousands of miles around what we call today Maine and the Canadian Maritimes. I once traveled from Rockland, Maine to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia in a 30-foot canoe. It was one of our normal canoe routes. It took us 3 days and 3 nights to get there. Once the land left us and became invisible behind us, we saw nothing but water, navigating with nothing but the knowledge of where that water was going to take us. Waves and wakes and water, and more waves and wakes and water, until we eventually saw land appear, initially as a ghost in front of us, a shadow, and later manifested itself as a solid piece of land that we would eventually place our feet upon. We navigated these waters with spruce root, cedar, ash, and of course birch bark, and to a minor extent elm bark, which was used as the outside covering for our canoes. Boiled pitch, animal fat, and sand filled the gaps that made our large floating baskets that we transported ourselves around in these waterways. Covered by dense forests, this land provided much needed resources for Europeans. We shared those resources. White pine, oak, spruce, cherry maple and ash, birch, fir, and many others. Then we had contact. We had settlements here that provided what we call today economics. It provided stability. It provided sense of place and purpose. Tribes knew that engaging in trade with new arrivals to our ancient homelands would help us, would benefit us to a certain extent. Europeans had trade goods that we desired, and we had a vast knowledge, for lack of better words, resources, trees that were desired by Europeans for their shipbuilding. Their intent was to identify, mark, and later harvest these trees to be processed and shipped to Europe to benefit their shipbuilding industry. We needed things like metal axe heads. We needed things like copper pots. Trinkets necessarily were something that we engaged in a vast economical system to benefit ourselves and benefit the shipbuilders. We etched these ships into stone. They're not petroglyphs. They were etched with metal tools, tools we traded already for. These ships left us with details, or these carvings, I should say, left us with many details of these ships that sailed our waters. They told us how these sails were configured. What was the shape of the vessel? How many sailors did it take to navigate the ships? What designs were on their flags? And what other details did we need to record? Whatever it was, we documented on those stone etchings, which still exist today on many of the islands, especially in Penobscot Bay, where I'm from. Over the colonial period, we Wabanaki came to appreciate Britain's maritime presence. It rendered itself as a valuable extractive economy for Native communities. These floating warehouses offered convenient access to British sailing vessels, maritime labor, and material goods that were quickly incorporated into our Wabanaki villages. We learned to sail over time. We became masters also of the ship, to the eventual dismay of the British, at least. But that's another story, another talk, another time. I was lucky in 2002 to be asked to consult on a show called Colonial House, which was made by the British Broadcasting Corporation and Public Broadcasting. And in that, I was to consult a group from the year 1628, actually. It was a shipping company that was sending people over here to establish a trade colony. And I thought we were going to have a really hard time doing trade, because if we're going to be historical, it wouldn't be a good interaction. It wouldn't be pleasant. But we're dealing with people from our day and age, our same day and age. We think that we would get along in allyship. And they were sent over here in the show's theme to create oak siding for houses that would be built in Europe and be shipped back, and parts for masts and sails. As a child, I was taken to a place on a traditional hunting ground called LaGrange, Maine. It's a town, I guess. It's more of a place. And way up in the woods where two streams come together, there's a giant dead pine that was as straight as you could ever find a pine tree. It was ancient. In its bark, at about my eye level, was a plaque in there. I don't know what it was made out of, but it says, "For His Majesty's use." Anybody that touches that plaque will be prosecuted, imprisoned, or worse. Well, that tree got struck by lightning. We call it lightning pine. It was to become a main mast for His King Majesty's fleet, in which Penobscot tribal guides brought folks who were building ships, looking for pieces of those ships, up to that area, because they knew there was this one pine tree that could possibly be used. That tree still stands today, dead, with that plaque, with the bark almost grown around the outside edges. And we see it every once in a while when we hunt deep in the forest up there. And it reminds me of the time that we did Colonial House, which was, we got along as humans because humanity is best served when we're helping each other. But desperate people do desperate things in desperate times. And times change. Today, I'm honored to be here, asked to be invited. I appreciate the board for having me here, and my friends Julie and Fred for making that happen, getting me on board here, and to see something so magnificent happen. So thank you for listening to me and letting me share my story of my people, at least in part. And have a great rest of your day, I think.
Thank you very much for that. One of the things that's made our project so wonderful, of course, are the volunteers who've come from all different areas, come together to help build this beautiful ship. And Jeremy's going to be talking more about them later. I just wanted to touch on a subject that I'm particularly fond of, me. Kirsty asked me to talk about myself. It wasn't my idea. But it was about 6 years ago that I became involved with Maine's first ship. Though I had been aware of the project for many years prior to that, following along the progress of what was happening. As someone who had been around a lot of traditional sail programs like Maine's first ship, I can tell you I was pretty skeptical that they were ever going to pull this off. I had seen plenty of projects like this start with a bang and then fizzle. I had participated in a number of them myself. But I figured I would, check it out and see what was going on. So I came down and went in the boat shed, which until about a week ago was standing right over there. And I can tell you, I was absolutely blown away. I was just astounded. The ship was framed up. The planks were half on. And I thought, holy cow, they are really building this thing. I can't believe it. And the funny thing is, standing there looking at the ship, I thought about this day right now. I thought about the day that she was going to be launched into the river. And I realized that if that happened and I wasn't a part of this project, I was really going to hate myself. So I came down soon after and talked to some of the folks that were running things. And I said, well, I'm not a shipwright, but I'm a fairly experienced traditional rigger. And they said, well, we don't have anyone who knows anything about rigging, so you're in charge. So from that day on, I was lead rigger and initially only rigger until some other folks came on. But that's sort of how I got here. And I'm very, very pleased that I am. And now it's my honor to introduce one of the people who has played a long and crucial role in the success of Maine's first ship. Orman Hines was one of the original archaeologists on the Fort St. George site, the site of the Popham Colony in Phippsburg. And part of that group of men and women who first envisioned this project and saw what it could be. Since 2009, Orman has served in the always difficult, sometimes thankless task of president of Maine's first ship. Ladies and gentlemen, Orman Hines.
Wow, what a crowd. Thanks for coming, folks. I'm going to just regale you a little bit about the history of the program. It started around a kitchen table down at Popham in a house called Huskett, which actually was taken from Horse Catch Point, as I read in Jane Stevens' book, One Man's World, a book that Jane Stevens wrote. So it was her house that this program was conceived in with and by a group of Popham and Phippsburg residents like John Moss, Bud Warren, Sharon Drake, Helga Johansson, and many other people. Under the guidance of Bev Locker, some of the first plans of what the ship would look like were done. He scoured the records in England to find plans, which there were none of a ship. But on the map inside the freight shed, you might have seen the map that was found in the Spanish archives about 180 years ago. There's a little drawing of a ship which matches the historical record of what they built. And so that has been a starting place for a lot of people that have built models and so forth. But in England, the research showed that most everything was done by eye by the shipwrights, although there was one gentleman, Matthew Baker, who was codifying some of the rules of design for a ship. Later on, a lot of people were involved in making the wonderful drawings that David Wyman made of our ship. It was Fred Walker in England, a naval historian, who drew the concept designs. It was Sam Manning, John Bradford, Captain David Cobb, and Rob Stevens, who all lent a critical eye to what the drawing should look like. And this is what you see behind us here. In 1998, we started an educational program that drew teachers from all over the state to a conference in Pittsburgh, about 20 of them, and we developed some of the lesson plans that the state required, and they're still available for teachers. In 2003, a group of our board members went to England and visited some of the sites that related to the ship and the Popham Colony. Littlecote was Sir John Popham's house. Quite a story behind that if you ever look it up. And then the Gilbert's house, who was the second in command, they visited that. And then, of course, they went to Greenwich Village, or Greenwich Museum. By 2004, Rob Stevens was selected as our shipwright. I don't know where Rob is hiding up, maybe up on the vessel. Rob, where are you? He's... Rob is one of the key people who made this possible. He offered to build a ship without being paid as a volunteer. And he just stuck with it right from the beginning to the end. And it wouldn't have moved forward if it wasn't for him. In 2006 and 7, as many of you know, the economy kind of died on us. And we had, at that time, an office and some space at Maine Maritime Museum just down the road, where we put on a demo of how a mast would have been built. And the state had an exhibit they had displayed. And then, of course, there was the celebration at Popham of the 400-year celebration of the colony. So that was the same time that we realized that we didn't have the money coming in that would finance the building of the ship. And Rob stepping up to volunteer his time was the deciding point that kept the ship and a few of the board members on base to build the ship. And what you see today is really a result of all the volunteers and wonderful board members and the donors that we have today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Blakelock. I am the vice president, one of two of the board, and I'm supposed to be closer to the microphone. My title is also the bosun. For those of you who don't know, the bosun is chief of the deck crew of a ship and sort of keeps everybody working. And no idling power units are allowed, and keeps materials flowing and everyone on task. So very early on, after we laid the keel, I somehow fell into that role. And the role, I thought, was to forge a crack team of shipwrights out of random people from the community. I failed at that. What we got instead was more like an anarchist collective. As you can see, it was perfectly effective and a lot more fun than what I was originally envisioning. We've had such an amazing, amazing group of volunteers show up on this job site and do amazing work for this organization. Not just in building the ship, but in fundraising, in publicity, in fixing power tools, tracking down obscure widgets on the internet, just everything possible that you can think of. This ship was created 99% by volunteers over this past 11 years. So if I could have all Maine's first ship volunteers either stand or raise your hand, I want you to see just what a huge percentage of this crowd they are. There's also a few other folks I would like to thank. Throughout the years, we have had some paid staff. Our current operations coordinator, Kimberly Madden, and our former office lady, Marcia Conover, were just amazing, answering phones and doing all the widgety paperwork. Andros Kiprogoras, our caulker, did a wonderful job, and I hope he's here to see that his ship will indeed float. And lastly, I should also thank all the spouses, the sweethearts, the kids of all of our volunteers for being the support behind them and putting up with what has become, for a lot of us, an obsession to get this ship built. So thank you very much. And next up, I'd like to welcome back to the microphone Kirsty Trueluck.
Thank you, Jeremy. You should know I might shed a tear, and it's okay. I'm here to just talk about what the building of the Virginia has shown us about Maine, and what it can mean for our community here and beyond. What the building of Virginia has shown us about Maine, Mainers, and Maine's first ship is, nevertheless, they persist. Against the odds, this project has made its way into being. Early failures and a hesitation to move ahead could not stop Virginia's energy, and the reasonable doubts of some fueled the determination of others. That is often how things go. The organization has demonstrated that if you build it, they will come. And a scrappy grassroots initiative has taken root at the northern terminus of an illustrious nautical mile that includes Maine Maritime Museum and BIW. It's also shown us that Mainers value our part in the history of what became the American experiment. And we have an important seat at the table when we discuss early exploration. Our little-known story of the Popham Colony at Fort St. George in Phippsburg has rippled throughout history. It has touched Jamestown's supplies It has been informed the early pilgrims. It has been an understudy role in Shakespeare's The Tempest. And it is part of Bath's now 415-year-old shipbuilding heritage. Maine is also has shown us that Maine is a community of passionate people who embody Yankee ingenuity at its zenith. Curiosity, problem solving, discovery, returning from setback, creating something from nothing, and telling a darn good tale as we go. This beautiful vessel is evidence of a successful journey to share history by building a ship, a journey not traveled in a straight line, and demonstrates our capacity to create beautiful and useful things. It was because of these things that I decided I wanted to join this motley crew. And I'm not really the director, I'm more of a conductor, where all the people in the orchestra they are masters in their crafts, and you're lucky if you can keep them moving in a direction. We share a passion for messing about in boats, and these people are clearly prepared should the zombie apocalypse arrive. Just saying, I'm in the right spot. What do the launch of Virginia and the organization we call Maine's First Ship mean for our community and for Maine going forward? Our people are an inspiring role model of volunteerism and committing to a larger purpose. We estimate that 200 people or so, and we've probably undercounted, especially when you consider the sweethearts and the other people that have been pressed into service and voluntold. But over 200 people have helped breathe life into Virginia. We can share that spirit with the world. We hope to be a space for humility and healing, to be people committed to acknowledging a past with more than one storyline. Indigenous history is part of the story of the Popham Colony and early America, and we seek to understand how we impact and influence our shared future. And finally, we have been and always will be a place of community since the Freight Shed Alliance started saving this building and Maine's First Ship said, "Can we come play in your yard?" We are a space where masters in their crafts, traditional hands-on skills, and academic pursuits come together to share with other curious souls. We can help deepen the knowledge and skills of our community. You can visit our website for more information. And no one is sailing on Virginia today. I'm sorry. We won't be taking passengers until 2023. But there'll be lots to do between now and then, including our lecture series, which begins on June 16th. So today is a great day. We are here to honor success not easily won. Our path into the future will not be a straight line. It will look much like our journey up to this historic and emotional moment. Maine's First Ship has brought history to life, woven people together, and given birth to beauty. We are honored and humbled to be on this path and eager to continue the journey with all of you. Thank you. It is now, I am pleased to welcome Allison Hepler to the mic to introduce our keynote speaker. Allison is an advocate for her constituents, an educator of Maine's youth, a curious student of history and the people who make it, a builder of beautiful things in her own right, and Allison also enjoys messing about in boats. Allison Hepler.
Do you know how fantastic you look right now? This is, yeah, so anyway. Community seems to be the watchword today, and that's why we're so pleased to have Captain Scott Smith to help us celebrate here. We in Bath got to know Captain Smith when he and a crew of men in what I call Navy camo showed up at the boat to move wood in 2016. Moving piles of wood from one place to another is how we see if volunteers are built for the long haul. And they stuck around. Captain Smith served as the first commanding officer of the USS Michael Monsoor, built at Bath Iron Works, and in his long career in the Navy has also been an instructor, a speechwriter, and established the Secretary of Defense's Professional Ethics Office. But what I will remember most about him is that he showed up to volunteer here. He embraced this project. 3 photos capture this. One is of Captain Smith just crawling around the oak frames with a big grin on his face. Another is one of his crew members, maul in hand, pounding in trunnels. And the third is of a promotion ceremony he held for 3 of his men standing right in front of Virginia. And one of them is here, I understand, over there if you want to, yeah. So we're glad you're here. There he is.
Chris, raise your hand.
He did. Oh. This is cool, I thought. Here's a guy and a crew who are training to sail on the most modern ship in the US Navy. And here they are working on a replica of one of the earliest European ships in New England. And we are grateful for that connection. There's been lots of juxtapositions here today, but with reenactors taking selfies, using paper money for things, and this is one of, and using the crane to launch this boat, and this is one of them. So we thank you, Captain Smith, for being here today.
Well, thank you, Allison. It's great to be here. It's great to see some of those that we volunteered with, and it's great to be back in Bath. As Allison mentioned, we sailed our ship down the Kennebec on November 9th, 2018, after being here for 3 years. And I've personally been wanting to get back ever since. I think about the skies and the space and the relatively light traffic. Not today, but most of the time. The simplicity of chopping wood, hiking with my family, and ice skating in Brunswick with my daughters. So that's the thing about nostalgia. You remember the good things. My memories are not crowded by how firewood warms you 3 times, of clearing the driveway of snow, or of the sustained freezing conditions necessary for ice skating. So today is partly about the past, a subject with which humankind is fascinated. We have telescopes aimed at the center of the universe, at the past as light travels, to search for some truth about our origins. In our religion and our philosophy, we look at how people conducted themselves in the past as we search for meaning of our own lives. We seek solace and refuge in the past, especially in times of difficulty, for the values of our forebears and the, quote, simpler times. But like my own reminiscences, we too often remember the romanticized version, the good things, rather than the struggles. And if there's one thing that I remember from working on this ship, it is how difficult the work was, even with some of the modern conveniences. I think too often we use the words history and heritage interchangeably, but there are differences. I see history as the characters taking part in events on certain dates or during certain periods of time. Heritage, on the other hand, is the interpretation of those events, the emotions and the reasons of the characters. Heritage is what we take away from those events and carry forward to create linkages and ultimately to write our story. Where history is a catalog, heritage is a choice. So I accepted the request to speak about the future of Virginia, but I cannot do so without looking to the past, because we have chosen to make this new Virginia a part of the heritage of the Mid-Coast. I am also fully aware that the past is a tricky thing. John Bear Mitchell spoke about the interactions with the native settlers of this area. Our past, individually and collectively, is full of these contradictions. Sometimes we thrive at the expense of others. Sometimes others thrive at our expense, although we tend to remember that a lot more. In every case, though, we need that past to continue to learn and to grow because perspectives change, knowledge and norms evolve. The author Michael Ende wrote, "Without a past, you can't have a future." That is the prospect that our crew faced when we arrived in Bath beginning in 2015. Our ship was also under construction, and it did not have a past. The crew came from assignments throughout the world and did not have a common past. What we did have, though, was an example in our namesake, Michael Mansour. His example was that of altruism, of giving freely to others. His final act at the age of 25, on the feast day of St. Michael, the patron saint of warriors for which he was named, was to give his life for others. He understood at that early age what it takes most of us decades to learn, that giving to others is its own reward, and that such giving lays the foundation for something greater. We strove to emulate his example of giving to others. And in this altruism, we found kindred spirits here. The French philosopher Auguste Comte gave us the word altruism, which means the good for others. It's revealing that he also provided us the word community. It was his belief that these two concepts were intertwined, that helping others would lead to a sense of cohesion, which would then cause greater altruism, and this would continue to spiral upward. That was proven here. That is not to say that the onrush of physically active 20-somethings didn't cause a little bit of a stir here at the freight shed. I was asked at one point to limit the number of sailors coming over each week. I truly thought it was our lower level of skill and the confined spaces. I've come to learn since that, I think Rob Stevens noted, that everyone was enjoying the sense of community and they didn't want it to end too quickly. For every project our sailors participated in, being it Working on Virginia, the Maritime Museum, Bath Middle School, our sailors gave their time, but they received much more. They felt part of the community. We gained a heritage of helping. And that heritage was carried forward and continues to this day. The spiral radiates ever outward. So what does Virginia offer the future? When we launch this ship today, we launch a new chapter in the legacy of the Mid-Coast and of Maine. We continue that sense of belonging and community. All who sail in her will feel the full experience of this community's past is intertwined with the building of ships for our nation before it was even a nation. Our future will see a project that was conceived as both commemorative and connective, where master craftspeople taught novices, where people worked the rooms to obtain funding or wrote grants and articles. The future will see a collective group that gave their time and their particular talents and worked shoulder to shoulder for more than 20 years to put this ship together, word by word and board by board to completion. The future will see a commemoration of the past and an investment in them. Mostly, they will see the power of possibility and of perseverance. Shakespeare wrote in his account of a tempest-tossed ship that what is past is prologue. We can only hope it's so, for that means that the future of Maine is bright because of the shining example of those gathered here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Jeremy, for your acknowledgement of the volunteers. But I have to say, not to suggest that the shipwrights would give the riggers short shrift, but in mentioning the professionals who've helped us out, we would be remiss not to mention Dale and Tom Ward of Traditional Rigging Company, who made the magnificent sails that Virginia will be setting. You know, 200 years ago, there would have been hundreds of square rig ships on the coast of Maine, and now Virginia will be the only one. And one of the things that's going to make her so distinctive are those beautiful ruddy brown tan bark sails that were made by Dale and Tom. So thank you. And now to help us in blessing Virginia, I would like to welcome Reverend Pamela Mott, priest in charge of Grace Episcopal Church in Bath, Maine.
Thank you. What a privilege and pleasure it is today to offer a prayer on this momentous occasion, to pray for the Virginia and to give thanks for so many people who put their time and effort and love into this project. So let us pray. Gracious God, creator of dry land, of oceans and rivers, and who inspires us to explore, to seek knowledge, to better know the world and its people. We ask you to allow this reconstruction of the Virginia to be a vessel of learning and education in a new time. May it allow us to be informed by the gifts and challenges of our history, bringing new understanding and unity to the people who inhabit these shores. May it navigate the waters in peace and have fair winds and following seas for its mission. Amen.
Okay, as we prepare for the final part of our launch ceremony, a couple of housekeeping things. First off, I'd like to give everyone a heads up that when the ship's keel touches the water, we'll be firing a salute with the two ship's guns down on the dock and a musket volley from our wonderful reenactors who are here. So it shouldn't be too terribly loud, but just be warned. When you hear that, it might seem like something has gone terribly wrong, but don't worry, it's all under control. We are professionals here. Also, when the ship goes in the water, we will be closing the freight shed in preparation for volunteer activity later tonight. The freight shed is opened for tours all through the summer. We have a regular schedule. We have docents. Please come down, bring folks down to visit. There's going to be a lot going on. The ship will be in the water. The rigging and construction will be ongoing. So still plenty of things to see. Also, if you missed any part of this ceremony, or if you want to watch it over and over again, as any rational person would, it will be posted on our YouTube channel, Maine's First Ship YouTube channel. Virginia's job will always be fundamentally education. And so we're honored to have as the ship's sponsor a young woman who was one of the very first to participate in the educational mission of Maine's First Ship. Kelsey Brick is a native of Bath, Maine, a graduate of Morse High, class of 2013. As a ninth grader, Kelsey was one of a group of students who took part in the laying of Virginia's keel, the very first step in the construction of the vessel. And she also helped to build and rig the ship's boat, the shallop, the Jane Stevens, which floats at our dock right now. And I believe she was the only student to actually take part in all three of those activities. So now, more than a decade later, we're delighted to have Kelsey here to launch Virginia on her continuing voyage and outreach and education. So I guess you're, thank you. So we'll turn your attention to Virginia's bow, where Kelsey will officially christen Virginia.
How you feeling? You're gonna be amazing. You're gonna be amazing. All right, you go ahead up there, and then I'm gonna just like hold the microphone. You know what you're gonna say? Yes. Okay. Oh.
I christen the Virginia. May the creator of the wind and the seas bless her and all who sail in her.
Can we have Rob Stevens to take his position? Rob Stevens to take his position. Thank you very much. Remember, we're all rowing in the same direction. Please be mindful that you are all want to see this as much as we all do. Be patient, be loving, be kind, and watch it on YouTube later if you miss it today.
When King James wore the English crown, 2 ships sailed forth from Plymouth town. The gift of God and the Mary and John to Virginia made their way. George Popham was the leader then, and with him went 100 men to build a fort on the northern strand, and for the winter stay. Using tools of the proper sort, they built a house and sturdy fort, their brave adventure to support, and a colony to begin. Then Gilbert looked, or so it seemed, up every river, brook, and stream. The Northwest Passage was the dream, would all their fortunes win. And as they viewed the woods around, the oak and pine did there abound, the like of which had not been found in England for many a year. There was amongst those hardy wights one shipwright, Digby he was hight. He laid a keel by the water bright to build a pinnace there. As autumn's days began to wane, their 2 ships sailed back home again, leaving 45 brave men there by the ocean side. Scarce 1 month or 2 was passed before the winter's icy blast brought great hardship, cold and frost. 'Twas then George Popham died. The colonists were in great need when Raleigh Gilbert took the lead, strong of will and rash of deed, then whether 'twas right or wrong. With haughty Maine he sent his men to fight the local Indians, for food and firewood ran out then as winter lingered long. Yet doughty Digby labored on, the beams were hewed and planks were sawn, the pinnace frame was raised anon, a ship of 30 ton. The hull was fit, the seams were caulked, the mast was set, spars rigged aloft, the sails were bent when she was launched, Virginia was done. But they had barely rigged the clews when a ship came there and brought sad news. John Popham had died, John Gilbert too, but Raleigh was his heir. So Fort St. George was burned down, for fear by France it might be found. To Compton Castle was Gilbert bound, to friends and family there. 2 ships the North Atlantic crossed, the Popham Colony was lost, the Plymouth Company bore the cost.
and putting on the ribbon. New Frontiers. So much for the christening. It happened 10 minutes before. That's why someone gave me the signal. But then I didn't need to play anchors away from it. New Frontiers. Are we ready? New Frontiers. Here we go. Set. 1, 2. God bless her. Yeah. Put on the Ritz, and then we'll finish with God bless her. What? Putting on the Ritz. Putting on the Ritz. God bless. You only play one. Oh, you played this one. Still a lot of people here, though. Yeah. Maybe we should play more. Still a lot.
They want to see if it's going to stick.
We heard God. Then let's do putting on the Ritz. And we'll see what happens. It's sailing. It's wait, Kathy. It's moving. It's actually moving. It's floating away. Woohoo! It's going away. That's cool. Still some people. I want to do two more. There's still a lot of people here. Let's go back to the first march we played at the beginning. Was it March of Freedom? Yeah. Okay, let's do that. And I know you're getting cold and it's not comfortable. Do that and then God bless. They'll know that we're done and play God bless. So we're doing March of Freedom. Thank you.
We'll build her from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia, and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. We departed Mother England in the year 1607, just to find a way to China and the promised land of gold. But the winter brought us to our knees as we built the ship from local trees, and we'll finish her if we don't freeze, 'cause we've never been so cold. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. 100 souls embarked there here from England to Virginia. Newport settled Jamestown, and Popham sailed to Maine. But the Popham food was running low, so half the men would choose to go and leave the rest to face the snow and Maine's winter rolling in. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. 100 souls embarked there here from England to Virginia. Newport settled Jamestown, and Popham sailed to Maine. But the Popham food was running low, so half the men would choose to go and leave the rest to face the snow and Maine's winter rolling in. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. In the autumn of 1608, we finished the Virginia, and we all sailed home to England on the first ship built in Maine. But you crossed the great Atlantic Sea to bring supplies to Jamestown, and in just 12 years the Pilgrims used our knowledge once again. From the forest of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise it to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again. From the forests of the Kennebec, we'll build the good Virginia. We'll build it from the oak and pine along the coast of Maine. We'll raise her to her tumble home, and once her humble sails are sown, we'll launch the good Virginia. We'll launch the good Virginia. We'll launch the good Virginia, and she'll sail us home again.